My name is Esther Robb and I'm Marketing Manager here at TCON. I'm very excited to have Jennifer Scholze from SAP join me today. Hi, Jennifer.
Hello, Esther. Thank you so much for having me. It's really a pleasure to be here.
You deal with paper producers also, and paper production is pretty resource intensive. You also drive sustainability solutions. Can you tell me a little bit about that in context with the mill industry, specifically paper industry maybe?
Sure. So, sustainability, I think the forest products, paper, pulp industry for years has been somewhat of a forethinker and a forerunner in this. I mean, this industry has cared about water and resource use, and I don't think this is really a new topic necessarily. What is new, I think, are other people are sort of waking up to the fact that this is important. So it's employees and investors and partners in the supply chain. So it is a good opportunity to really think about from an end-to-end perspective, where could we be doing better with sustainability? And I think a first step that I hear from customers toward going down that path is looking at each step. What could we be doing better from production? Is there a better way to do our processes that are less energy intensive or that use less water, or maybe we do something different with the water? How do we take care of the chemicals? From a safety standpoint, I know that's always been a number one priority, but is there more even we could be doing there? And then another big area we're starting to see is the sort of not end of life, because it's more a circular economy now, but even more, how do we recycle? How do we use materials that maybe are recycled? And instead of just this concept of an end of life, how do we work it back into the system? So all industries, but in particular, I think paper packaging as well are jumping on this and really a forerunner in this concept.
Mm-hmm. You just mentioned this circular economy. That's basically one way to try to achieve our overall sustainability strategy, or what exactly do you mean by that?
So when I think about circular economy, the first point that I think about is that on a yearly basis, the world creates 100 billion tons of stuff. So whether it's cars or any sort of materials, the sort of sad fact right now is only 10%, even less than 10%, is actually reused or recycled. So imagine the amount of stuff that either has to go into waste, landfills, oceans. So that's just tragic from an earth standpoint, but also think about the value of that. I mean, there's definitely value in a lot of the rest of the 90% of stuff that's out there. So that's the idea of a circular economy. So instead of just you make something, you use it, and then you throw it out, it's you make something, you use it, and then you either reuse it, you bring it back to its original materials, and then you put it back into the system, so that in the end, that you never have anything that gets to be thrown out. And if they compare this to forests, for example, that a forest is always regenerating itself. There's no waste. Tree grows, it dies, it goes back into the dirt, and everything sort of regenerates. And that is a concept that I think businesses are really jumping on board, especially asset-intensive businesses like pulp, paper. These are also the industries that right now are a lot of they're producing a lot of the waste. So they also have a big responsibility, I think, to figure out how to help make the world more circular. And one last point on the circular economy, I think it's not a question anymore of if we're moving to circular, it's just how fast we can all get there.
That's a really good point, actually. Because, I mean, if you think about it, 90% that gets thrown away and never used, that's kind of a scary number. So
yeah, I totally agree. It's like heart-wrenching almost in a way to think about the amount of waste that's out there. And often we don't see it because it's just carried away somewhere, or it's in the oceans where we don't see it, but it comes back in lots of negative ways, unfortunately.
out of sight, out of mind, right? But that's not how it works. Well, thank you for elaborating on that. Do you maybe have a concrete use case so that we can grasp the concept of the circular economy a little better?
So an example of circular economy, maybe in the packaging space, you get shipments from Amazon or other companies that comes in big boxes. For one thing, I know that they're spending a lot of time on making sure that the boxes are the right size, so it's not too much. So already they're cutting down on potential waste. And then I've seen companies where you're able to reuse the box. You can write on the inside where it went, and then there are places to send it back to so that you can keep reusing the box. And then also recycling of the boxes. You can put it into your recycling instead of your garbage so that it can go back and be made into something else, whether it's boxes or carpeting. One other example, actually, Mohawk Carpet is one of the largest recyclers of plastic bottles in the US. So a big portion of their carpets, they use plastic bottles, and of course they have to boil it down and take the chemicals out and do whatever's needed to make sure that it's safe and appropriate to put back into the carpet. But I think that's a perfect example. Is you have the bottles that would potentially be thrown out or need to be turned into something, are then turned back into carpet.
Okay, that's kind of fascinating. And cool it works that way. Well, thank you for pointing out these use cases. I think that was very helpful. Do you have maybe more concrete ways in which SAP supports its customers on the way to become a fully sustainable company?
In terms of sustainability, SAP has been focused on this topic for more than 10 years. And we talk about SAP both as an exemplar and as an enabler. So on the exemplar side, we are reducing single-use plastics. We are very strong on diversity and inclusion. We take care of our data centers that they use as least energy as possible. I think we even just said we're going to be carbon neutral by 2025. So we're doing a lot on that side of SAP, but we actually think we have a ton more opportunity to help make the world run better using our own solutions. And if you think about it broadly, you can think about it from a reporting standpoint. So understanding what your sustainability, what you're doing from a carbon and how you're using water. So just analyzing that and collecting that data, that's something that SAP is really good at and is also building more cloud solutions for. And then if you think about the circular economy, we were talking a little bit about before, there's multiple aspects of SAP solutions that can help. One would be sustainable and responsible design. So from the very beginning, how you're creating your product has a big influence later on how it can be recycled, how it can be, hopefully it won't need to be thrown out. So we have and are building solutions for responsible design. Responsible sourcing is the next one. So making sure that you are working with supply chain partners who are sustainable, who are sourcing their, for example, trees from sustainable forests. So that's a second large piece that we have solutions like Ariba and others that support sourcing. Consumption, responsible consumption is largely a consumer issue. But for example, having a barcode, so you're going to the store and you can scan it and see what the carbon footprint is of that product. So you can help consumers make responsible and informed choices. And not just what the carbon footprint is, but say they buy the bottle or the can afterward, you can help them decide, well, where to put it. Is there a certain recycling area for that makes sense? And then the final piece would be resource reuse, recycling, and waste management. We have in our building solutions to help companies understand what materials they have, tracking and tracing along their supply chain, and not just until it gets sold to someone, but also at the end of life. So construction is a great example. You have steel companies, you have walling companies that all provide their materials to construction companies, and then it gets built into a building. Well, the idea is you can track that over its lifetime so that you know what it is, where it is, what the value is, and then at the end of life, companies could participate in taking that back and using it for something else. And it all starts with the data. You need to understand, companies need to be able to track, understand what the data is, where it is, and what the value is.
That was really interesting. Thank you for sharing. And I think you mentioned this earlier, that sustainability measures are often driven by customer demand and also maybe investor demand. And I think there were a lot of ways that SAP helps companies in the mill industries that will actually cater to those customer and investor needs.